Welcome back to the channel. You are joining me today from the wonderful Yorkshire Dales National Park. Huge fan of this area, and of course we'll get into a spot of landscape photography. Now I want to talk a little bit today about pre-visualization, and what I mean by that is something that I've knowingly brought into my landscape photography probably over the past 6 months to a year. I've been doing it longer than that, but probably without much intent. It's really simple, but it's helping my photography a lot. It's like a different approach to landscape photography that you can try out yourself as well and see if it works. So I tell you what, I love this place. It's been a while since I've been in this particular area of the Dales, and I'm here to explore some of the famous, gorgeous limestone pavement. Always blows me away. Feels really sort of otherworldly, and of course fantastic potential for landscape photography. So let's crack on. So I think this has been my longest ever stint of not being in the Lake District, and for no reason really other than the fact that I'm just loving, Forest of Bowland, the Yorkshire Dales, my local area, the coasts around where I live, my local woodlands. I haven't fallen out with the Lake District or anything like that. I just like, I'm feeling inspired about these sorts of landscapes. This bleakness, I've been saying this so much recently, this bleakness, this nothingness, these landscapes to me it's got a real inhospitable feeling about the landscapes. And yeah, with regards to the photography and the emotion that we get across in our photography, I'm just feeling like there's something in that. And of course winter is just the perfect season for that. But I will be back to the lake soon. I've got some great plans and stuff like that, but yeah, unreal. So pre-visualization, let's talk and walk for a bit en route to this limestone pavement. There's a couple of different approaches really to what I mean by this, and they both don't really have much to do with each other, but they come under the same bracket. One's actually to do with post-processing, kind of, which is one of the most important things I've learned, I would say, over the past couple of years, and we'll get into that once I get set up with my camera, because it's going to be much easier for me to talk to you about that. But secondly, there's probably the more obvious thing about pre-visualizing the landscape, and that one is all to do with kind of scouting, and visiting an area beforehand. In my video a couple of weeks ago there in the snow, I scouted that area. And pre-visualization was really, really important with that particular day, that particular workflow, and how I came to get these two photographs that I'm going to put up here. The one with the really nice textured rock, which is probably my favourite from that day in hindsight, and then this one here, which is the second style, which again, just really liked the composition, but I wouldn't have got them shots if it wasn't for pre-visualization. So let's crack on up to this limestone pavement, because I am buzzing to get up there. So I think I do make it quite obvious sometimes. We've got another style straight out the top drawer. Simplicity is key. Always remember that. You don't need to mess about so much. And this has presented itself to me. I'd be surprised if any landscape photographer walked past this scene with the style, the wall leading out into some of the distant hills, and they wouldn't be attracted by it. It feels quite natural to me. Now, anyway, before we get into this composition, which I think is going to be quite obvious anyway, let's talk about pre-visualization with reference to post-processing. What do I mean by that? I talk about this in my one-to-ones quite a lot. If you don't do any post-processing on your images, this is wholly irrelevant, really, to be completely honest with you. But if you do, here's the thing. So over the past 2 years, when I've been taking photographs, I am like visualizing how I'm going to edit the photograph in Lightroom. So I'm literally thinking about the panel in Lightroom. What can I do to this photograph to bring out the best of it, to bring out all those beautiful emotions? And this is a really good example. Now, what I don't mean here is how can I get this image into Photoshop and manipulate it and spend several hours making it look amazing. That's not what I mean. And by the way, if that is what you do, fair play. I'm not here to judge. All I mean by that is that, you know, if you're a beginner watching this, please understand this is only going to take me 10 minutes. I'm not saying there's a load of advanced editing going on with this. I think it's just really important to pre-visualize how you're going to edit a photograph. It gives you the confidence to take it. So in this photograph, for example, the sky is probably the most important, and all I'm going to do is spend 30 seconds to put an ND grad filter in Lightroom and bring out the texture of those gorgeous dark grey clouds, because my Nikon is just capturing it. It just looks overexposed. It isn't overexposed as per the histogram, but it just looks white. But I know, because I'm studying, you can probably even see it, look, that sky is beautiful. Whereas on the Nikon, it just looks white. That's the first thing I do. Secondly, in these moorland scenes, I like to use global desaturation. I like to bring down the colours a little bit, you know. I find there's a lot of green here, it's just distracting. If I bring down those colours, I can actually enhance that kind of bleakness and nothingness, I keep saying that, of this scene, which I think is so beautiful. You'll see a lot of landscape photographers in these sorts of areas will shoot black and white. Although that's not my thing, it makes so much sense. You know, the colours can be quite distracting and they can actually work against that bleak feel. That's pretty much it. I mean, what else would I do? There's a bit of a, you might be able to tell, a bit of a blue haze in the atmosphere. I'll bring down the blue saturation specifically a little bit because I don't like the way it looks in my photographs. But that gives me the confidence to take this photograph, and that's something I do now, probably in a bit of a second nature way with every single photograph. I'm thinking, how am I going to edit this photograph? So simple, but give it a shot. So like I say, I think the composition is going to be simple, but we've got this style on the right hand side, and then it's leading us into the frame, or sorry, the wall's leading us into the frame, and the peak here right in the centre of your frame just there is called toe scar. And you can see the two of them actually, which are going to be in the frame. They've got a really nice form, you know, it's not just a boring flat hill. So it gives a lot of interest in the background, and of course the wall, the dry stone wall, leads us into that interest. Simple as that. Honestly, that's all I mean by that. And I just try and get into that habit, and it really does help me out, you know. Awesome stuff. So as well, I think this will be a great one to come back to in the snow, but that's something that I want to get onto when I next set up at the limestone pavement. So 1/50th of a second, ISO 100, f9, and I've focused on the style. Nice and simple. Whoa! I'm up on the limestone pavement now. I'll tell you what, it is exposed up here. We're on a cliff edge. It's so windy. It's way windier than what it was forecast. But we're up here and we're living the dream. I absolutely love this stuff. No matter where I go, I think this is one of the landscapes, one of the places that will always continue to blow me away. You know, photography aside, it is so cool. Quite similar in many ways in terms of its formation to where I was last week at Norbert Erratic. So it's all to do with the Ice Age. So cool to photograph. So I wanted to stop briefly and just explain to you what I'm looking for. I want some of the limestone pavement in this next photograph, if that isn't obvious. The background is beautiful, looking back towards Ingleborough. So that's the background and the foreground sorted. So all I'm really looking for now, you can see over my left shoulder there. Oh man, it's so windy. There's loads of lone trees, erratics, you know, lone boulders sticking up. And I'm going to use the same concept as in my last video, whereby using the wide angle lens, get close into one of these lone trees or rocks, make them large within the frame. And again, with the wide angle lens, I want to shoot, I want to capture quite a lot of this landscape and try and again convey that sense of bleakness that today really is all about. I'll tell you what, I have to say this again, if you're ever going to come to these places, dodgy, so dodgy, just be careful. Like, even though it started raining now, the rocks are still dry. Even then, they're still quite slippy. You get a lot of loose rocks. I don't want to tempt fate, but this is prime ankle breaking territory. So that has to be the number one whenever you come to these places. Be careful. Right, let's see what we can find and get set up, if I make it over there. Wild. So the weather's come in, that glorious British weather that I love so much. I think it's a bit over the top today. It's so gusty and the rain is here. It's getting a bit grim, but get a look. What a subject, so similar to when I was at Norbert Erratics there last week. This beautiful boulder brought here by the Ice Age. It doesn't belong here basically. It's the best way to describe how it got here. The ice brought it here, it could have travelled hundreds of kilometres and then it dumped it here when all the ice melted. And now I'm here in 2020 taking a photograph of it with my Nikon D7200. Can't get my head around that, but it's so cool. So I'm really excited about this composition. I think it's going to be quite cool. But first, let's get into the pre-visualization. And this is the simple one, really. And it's just scouting. That's all it is. And it's coming to locations like this. And as the photographer, making a decision as to when you think, you know, this particular location, wherever it may be, is going to be at its optimum conditions wise. So for example, here I've said all day snow. This is going to be fantastic in the snow. It's going to add to that bleak emotion that this landscape is so unique for, you know. For example, it could be your local deciduous woodland that you're looking at now in winter, and you realise there's going to be bluebells there in the spring. Come spring, you go with your camera and you get the shot. Brilliant. A shot that you wouldn't have got if you didn't pre-visualize, if you didn't scout that landscape. And you know, it doesn't have to be scouting a composition or even a subject. That's just what's happening here. It could just be a whole vast landscape. You know, I could have just come here and said, yep, this is going to be mint in the snow. Done. And that's exactly what happened in my last video. Not my last video, sorry, the video when I was in the snow. I went there before there was snow and I just did a bit of scouting and I thought, this is going to look great when it snows. I've just said snow a lot, I'm really sorry. And that's what happened. And then I got them shots that I'm really proud of that I would not have got if I didn't do that little bit of scout. So you see how there's kind of two different approaches to landscape photography. On one hand, there's the approach where you don't plan. You just go somewhere with your camera up to a fell or an area of coastline, whatever it might be, and enjoy yourself. You know, are you going to be in the right place at the right time? Who cares? You're out with your camera and that's fun. But then there's this other side that I wanted to share with you today that I am really enjoying recently, and that's this scouting and planning and just figuring out, you know, when things are going to look nice and just visualizing the landscape in certain conditions. I'm thinking about this now in the snow with a bit of morning side light, you know, and that's probably it. I don't want my expectations to be too high and I think that's going to look lovely. But in saying that, I'm really excited to show you this composition because I think it's going to look cool. as is. Now you could see here I'm set up really low down, exactly like in my last video at No Bit Erratics. I want to get low to give prominence to the foreground. In this case, this beautiful limestone pavement. You can see here 1, 2 and 3. I think these are fissures, dikes and fissures I think is the terminology. Please comment below what the correct term is for these. Somebody's told me before. But yeah, these lines they lead up into the rock in the background, the boulder, and then is it where my head is? Probably is. Here, one of the sides, it's on the very far left hand side of your screen, is a mountain called Greygarth, which, for anyone that's interested, is actually, the peak of it is in Lancashire. The Lancashire-Yorkshire border goes over the mountain, so that's pretty cool. It's probably useless information to the vast majority of people watching, but it's out there now. So that's what I'm doing. I've got the wide angle lens on at 11mm, and I'm actually focus stacking and taking one image focused down here, one image focused on the boulder, and then one focused on the mountain in the background, wherever it is. And then I'll blend them together so we get a nice focus throughout. I don't usually focus stack, but I think I don't want to lose any detail in the limestone pavement and the boulder. That's the main thing here. But I think it's going to be really nice. We're going to have a nice wide angle effect, but most of all I'm here. I've got a nice shot during what really is just a scouting day, and I can come back here in conditions that are going to be class in the snow. So fingers crossed this is going to be a nice photograph, but also fingers crossed in, let's say, a month or two's time, I'm going to be back here in the snow buzzing with you guys, and you're going to remember that I came here and figured out that this is going to be a cool place to come in the snow. I hope you like this shot. Brilliant, another class day of landscape photography and a great little scouting mission and an area that I will return to in the snow. Like I said, hopefully with you guys here with me. What a treat. Thank you very much for tuning in, always appreciated. I just wanted to say a quick thanks and to express my huge gratitude for the donations that I have received and that I continue to receive over on my Ko-fi page, which is amazing. Honestly, you guys know how much that means and how grateful I am to that. If you want to donate and help me out, I'll put a link in the video description below. That would be amazing. If you don't want to donate, goes without saying, absolutely fine. You know, the support I receive by you just watching these videos, commenting, giving them a like, means the world. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed this adventure. As always, as I always say, please do give the video a like if you have a quick second. It really helps out my content. And comment below. I need to get out of this landscape. See you on the next adventure. Out!